Welcome back to Mr. Night Turth. Tonight I bring you 6 horrifying swamp encounters. Real stories so disturbing, so unnatural, they will tear apart everything you thought you knew about the living and the dead. These are not works of fiction, they are true encounters, confessed by those who came face to face with forces that should never exist. The swamp is not silent. It breathes, it watches, and it remembers. If you're new here, subscribe to Mr. Night Turth, because once you enter, there is no escape. Story number 1. I don't draw. Not anymore. Not since the sketchbook. But if I tell you the truth about what's inside it, you'll think I'm lying. Everyone does. And maybe they're right. Maybe none of it happened. But then how do I explain the blood on the last page? You won't believe me when I tell you this, but the sketchbook wasn't mine, and it never should have ended up in my gallery. In fact, some nights I swear I burned it. Other nights I remember locking it away. Yet here I am, staring at its pages again, as if it followed me back. I used to run the gallery alone most nights. There's a kind of silence that clings to old brick buildings after midnight. The pipes groan, the glass rattles if a car passes, and shadows lengthen as if the walls themselves lean in to watch. I loved that silence once. It felt like the world had gone still, like the paintings could finally breathe without an audience judging them. But since the night of the stranger, silence hasn't felt safe. It feels like a trap. He didn't knock. I didn't even see him arrive. One moment the alley outside was empty, slick with rain. The next, he was just there, standing in the doorway with a bundle under his arm. His coat looked too big for him, threadbare, dripping. His eyes, they wouldn't stay still. They darted between the floor and the ceiling, never once meeting mine. I should have turned him away. God, I should have. He slid the bundle onto the floor without speaking. I remember hearing paper shift inside, heavy, damp. I asked him what it was, and he just muttered something I couldn't catch, something that sounded like, "Not mine anymore." And then, he was gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just the echo of his boots in the alley and the smell of wet wool. The bundle, of course, was the sketchbook. At first it looked ordinary. The leather was cracked, flaking at the edges, the kind of book you might find forgotten in a thrift shop. But it was heavy, unnaturally so, as if the pages carried more than graphite and ink. I shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity has always been my weakness. The first drawing was of the gallery itself. My gallery. Every detail was there. The chipped molding above the door, the crooked exit sign, even the smudge on the window from where I leaned when locking up. But the drawing wasn't exact. It looked wrong. The shadows stretched too far, longer than the objects that cast them, and in one of the windows there was a figure standing, watching. I laughed it off, told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe the stranger had been in before. Maybe he'd sketched it from memory. That seemed logical enough. Except the next night, when I opened the sketchbook again, there was another drawing. I didn't draw it. I know that sounds impossible, but I swear on my life, I didn't touch a pencil. The drawing wasn't there the night before, and suddenly, it was. This time, the page showed the alley. My alley. But the figure was closer now. Its face blurred, almost erased, like someone had tried to rub it out but couldn't quite finish the job. I remember slamming the book shut. I told myself it was some trick, that I'd missed the page the first time. Maybe I was overtired. But no, I wasn't. Because the drawings kept appearing. Each night, a new one waited for me. Sometimes it was the gallery. Sometimes it was the alley. Once, it was my own office. Desk, chair, lamp, rendered in smudged charcoal that left dust on my fingers. And always the figure, closer, clearer. I tried to get rid of it. I know I did. One night, I remember throwing it into the dumpster behind the gallery. The lid slammed shut, and I walked away shaking, convinced I was done with it. But the next morning, when I unlocked my office, it was sitting on the desk, waiting. And yet, this is where I start to doubt myself. Because another memory fights with that one. A memory where I never threw it away. A memory where I placed it gently in my desk drawer, locking it tight. Which version is true? I couldn't tell you anymore. Both feel real. Both feel like lies. That's the problem, isn't it? My memory doesn't line up neatly. I'll tell you I burned it. Yes, I remember the flames licking the edges, curling the pages to ash. I can smell the smoke even now. But if that's true, how do I still have it? How am I still turning its pages? The more I deny it, the more it insists on being real. One night, I think it was a Thursday, though the days blur, I stayed late cataloguing some new pieces. The gallery was empty, the street outside silent. I told myself I wouldn't open the sketchbook. I locked it in the drawer, pushed the key into my pocket. But around midnight, I heard something. A scratching sound. At first, I thought it was a rat in the walls. Old buildings are never clean of pests, but the scratching was rhythmic, steady, like pencil on paper. I froze. The sound was coming from my office. I remember walking slowly, each step heavier than the last. The door was shut, but light seeped from beneath it. I hadn't left the lamp on. My hand shook on the knob, but I turned it anyway. The drawer was open. The sketchbook lay on the desk, pages rustling as if caught in a breeze, though the air was still. And there, on the newest page, was me. Not a perfect likeness, but close enough. My jawline, my eyes, the curve of my shoulders, and behind me, in the sketch, was the figure. No longer blurred, no longer distant. It was right at my back, its hand raised as if about to touch my shoulder. I swear to you, I felt it then. A cold pressure, fingers brushing the back of my neck. I spun around, nothing, no one. Just the hum of the gallery lights and the thud of my heart. That was the first night I stopped trusting what I saw, or what I remembered. I should have closed the gallery, walked away, but instead, I kept opening the sketchbook, night after night, convinced if I studied the drawings enough, I'd find the trick, the flaw. But the more I looked, the less sure I became, because sometimes when I stared too long, the sketches seemed to move. Lines shifted, shadows breathed, and that figure, that impossible figure, seemed to lean closer. And now I don't know if the stranger gave me a curse, or if I've been drawing in my sleep, revealing something I don't want to admit. But I do know this. Every page brings the figure closer. And last night, the sketch wasn't of the gallery, or the alley, or my office. It was of my bedroom, and the figure wasn't standing behind me anymore. It was sitting on the bed. I didn't tell anyone about the bedroom sketch. At least, I don't think I did. But then, how do I explain the fact that Emma showed up the next morning, holding the sketchbook like it already belonged to her? The name might not mean much to you, but Emma has always been, well, she was, the only one I trusted with my gallery. She knew my routines, my little obsessions, the way I'd stay too long in front of certain pieces, studying brushstrokes until my eyes blurred. She knew how easily I got lost in the art. She also knew when I was lying. So when she walked into my office that morning with the sketchbook tucked under her arm, frowning like a mother who'd caught her child sneaking cigarettes, my stomach turned, because I could have sworn I'd left it locked in the drawer again. "Where'd you get that?" I asked, sharper than I intended. Emma set it on the desk between us. The leather looked darker, wet somehow, though her hands were clean. "You left it on the front counter," she said. Calm. Too calm. Customers could have seen it. "No," I muttered. "That's impossible. I locked it away." She tilted her head, studying me the way she studied old frames for cracks. "Then who unlocked it?" I didn't answer, because the truth was I didn't know. Or maybe I did, and I didn't want to admit it. Emma flipped open the book. I should have stopped her, but I froze, my throat tightening. The newest sketch spread across 2 pages. Not the gallery, not the alley, not my office. No, it was Emma herself. Her face was drawn in exquisite detail. Every line of her jaw, every strand of hair, every crease around her eyes. Too real, too intimate. I felt a shiver crawl through me because I knew I hadn't drawn it. Except it looked like my work, my style, my pressure, my shading. Funny, Emma said softly, tracing the page with her fingertip. It looks like me, but I don't remember posing for you. Her voice carried a question, though she never asked it outright. Did you draw this while I slept? Did you come into my apartment? I laughed it off, though my laugh cracked in the middle. Must have been in there already. Old sketchbook. Probably belonged to the stranger. Emma's eyes flicked up, sharp. Stranger? Hadn't I told her that part already? I thought I had, or maybe I hadn't. Maybe I'd only rehearsed it in my head, imagining her reaction. I tried to explain. The man in the doorway, the bundle left behind, the muttered words. But the more I spoke, the more uncertain it sounded, like I was inventing it on the spot. Emma didn't interrupt. She just listened, lips pressed tight, eyes narrowing with every detail. When I finished, she closed the sketchbook with a heavy thud. You need sleep, she said finally. That's all, but she was wrong. Sleep was the problem. Because when I slept, the drawings multiplied. I started hiding the sketchbook in different places, under floorboards, behind locked cabinets, once even inside the freezer. It didn't matter. Every morning, it reappeared on my desk, a fresh portrait waiting. Sometimes it was Emma, sometimes it was me. Once, disturbingly, it was both of us, side by side, our faces blurred together, like the paper couldn't decide where one ended and the other began. I tried not to show her, but Emma wasn't stupid. She'd come by the gallery more often, checking on me, on the book. She'd flip through the pages while I pretended to be busy, humming nervously, waiting for her to notice what I'd noticed. The portraits, they weren't still anymore. It began subtly, a twitch at the corner of an eye, a curve of the lips that hadn't been there before. I thought I imagined it, but Emma gasped once, slamming the book shut. Did you see that? She whispered. I wanted to say yes, to confess that the drawings moved, that they breathed, but instead I shook my head. See what? Her stare cut through me. Don't play games. The eyes, they blinked. I should have denied it more forcefully. Instead, I whispered, they do that sometimes. The silence that followed was worse than any accusation. Our conversations grew sharper after that. You're drawing these, Emma insisted one night, her voice rising as we stood in the gallery's back room. You don't realize it, but you are. Sleepwalking maybe, or dissociating. But these are your hands. No, I snapped, louder than I meant. I told you, I don't draw anymore. Then who does? She shoved the sketchbook against my chest. The pages fluttered, dozens of faces staring up at me, their eyes too lifelike, too wet, like they'd spill out if I tilted the book. I wanted to say the stranger. I wanted to blame anyone but myself, but in that moment, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Emma's voice softened, almost pleading. If you're in trouble, if you're losing time, you have to tell me. You can't keep pretending this is supernatural. But the word stuck in my mind. Supernatural. It sounded ridiculous when she said it, but when I looked down at the portraits, I swore I felt warm breath against my cheek. I don't know when Emma stopped believing me completely. Maybe it was after the sketch of her sleeping face appeared, her body curled under her own blankets, hair spilling across her pillow, mouth slightly open. She came into the gallery the next morning, white as chalk, shoving the book into my arms. You were in my apartment, she hissed. No, I whispered, horrified. I wasn't, I would never. But the drawing didn't lie. Unless the sketchbook wasn't drawing what had already happened. Unless it was drawing what would. I told her that, but she didn't answer. She just looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. The nights blurred after that. I stopped sleeping, terrified of what new faces would appear. The gallery grew colder, darker, as if the sketches were draining the warmth from the walls. The portraits filled the book, Emma laughing, Emma crying, Emma screaming, each one sharper, more alive, until I couldn't shake the feeling that the paper wasn't holding the drawings anymore. It was holding her. Sometimes I swear I heard her voice when I flipped the pages. Soft, pleading, "Help me, let me out." Other times it wasn't her voice at all. It was the stranger's. Low, raspy, repeating that phrase. Not mine anymore. And then came the last portrait I saw with her. It wasn't finished. Half her face was detailed, alive, eyes wide with fear. The other half, nothing but smudges, as if erased. I asked her what she saw. She wouldn't answer. She just backed away, shaking her head, whispering something I couldn't catch. The next morning, she didn't come to the gallery. She hasn't come back since, but the sketchbook still does, and the faces don't stop appearing. Last night, it wasn't Emma anymore. It wasn't me either. It was someone I've never seen before. But I think I'm about to. The face in the sketchbook wasn't Emma's. It wasn't mine either. And yet, when I opened the door that night, I swear I saw them standing there, exactly as the page had shown, waiting for me like we'd already met. I told myself I wouldn't open the sketchbook again. I promised out loud, pacing the gallery like a madman, that I was finished. But promises mean nothing when the book wants you. It was midnight again, that cursed hour when the gallery walls lean inward and the shadows seem to breathe. I sat at my desk, the sketchbook closed, heavy, staring at me like a loaded gun. I should have locked it away. I should have thrown it into the river, but I didn't. My hands wouldn't listen. I opened it. The newest portrait was clearer than any before. A stranger's face, etched in fine detail. High cheekbones, deep-set eyes, lips pressed in a grim line. Someone I'd never seen before, or at least I thought I hadn't. But the longer I stared, the more familiar it felt, as if I should know them, as if I'd met them once and forgotten. The drawing's eyes seemed to follow me. No, more than follow. They studied me, judged me. I snapped the book shut, but it was too late. The face was branded behind my eyelids. That was when the knocking started. Soft, hesitant, from the gallery door. I froze. No one should have been out there. It was well past midnight, and Emma was gone. Another knock. Louder. I told myself not to look, to stay put. But of course I did. I walked to the glass front door, and there, standing in the rain, was the face from the sketch. Exactly. Down to the shadow under the left eye, the scar across the lip. They didn't move. They just stood there, waiting. When I blinked, they were gone. Or maybe they'd never been there at all. I don't remember much after that. The days smeared together like charcoal on damp paper. I stopped eating. I stopped turning the gallery lights on. I sat in my office with the sketchbook open, flipping pages, waiting for Emma's face to reappear. It never did. Instead, the portraits changed. They weren't strangers anymore. They weren't even people I knew. They were places, rooms I recognized. My kitchen, my hallway, my bedroom again, but each place had something in it. A shadow, a figure, waiting. And then the pages began to thin. I don't mean physically. The book still felt heavy, thick, endless. But each time I opened it, there were fewer blank sheets, as though it were working toward an end. A conclusion, a last page. That thought terrified me more than anything. Because what happens when the sketchbook is finished? One night I tried to resist. I told myself I wouldn't open it no matter what. I shoved it under the desk, pressed my palms to my ears. And still I heard it, that scratching, that endless pencil stroke, even though no pencil touched it. Finally, I snapped. I yanked it back open, desperate, furious, and there it was, me. Not the blurred, half-finished versions from before. No, this was me in perfect, horrifying detail. Every wrinkle, every freckle, every haunted vein in my eyes. It was like staring into a mirror that hated me. And in the drawing, I wasn't alone. The figure was back, standing right behind me, its hand resting gently on my shoulder. This time, I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because deep down, I knew what I'd see. That was the moment I broke. I don't know if the figure is real, or if it's just the part of me I've been hiding, the guilt I've been burying. You see, I keep telling you the stranger gave me this sketchbook, that it just appeared in my life one rainy night. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see something different. I see my own hands carrying it into the gallery, my own reflection in the glass door, not some ragged man. What if there was never a stranger? What if this was always mine? I try not to think about Emma, but her name presses against my skull. I tell myself she left, that she got scared and walked away. But when I flip the pages back, I find her face again, smiling, then crying, then screaming, and in the last sketch of her, the unfinished one, half her face missing. Maybe it wasn't unfinished after all. Maybe it was erased by me. The sketchbook has only one blank page left now. Just one. I can feel it waiting every time I touch it, like a breath held too long. Last night I dreamt of fire again. I saw myself holding the book in the flames, pages curling, ashes rising. I told myself that's how it ends. Burn it, finish it, free myself. But when I woke, the book was there beside me, untouched. And the final page was no longer blank. It wasn't Emma. It wasn't me. It wasn't the stranger. It was you. Yes, you. The eyes on the page, they're your eyes. Don't bother denying it. I recognize you now, sitting there, listening, thinking you're safe. The book knew you before I did. It drew you into its story. And if you think you'll just walk away after hearing this, you won't, because once the sketchbook has your face, it never lets go. Story number. I know this sounds insane, but the first time he said my name, I swear it wasn't mine. Or maybe it was. I don't know anymore. Maybe I made him up. Maybe I made all of this up. But if you've ever felt someone watching you when you were completely alone, then you already know what I mean. I know you're not going to believe me. No one ever does. But the first time he said my name, it didn't feel like mine. It rolled out of his mouth too easily, too familiar, like he'd been practicing it, whispering it to himself long before I ever heard it aloud. And I swear I never told him, at least I don't think I did. I worked the night shift at Dollar Haven. People think a dollar store is harmless, boring even. But you don't know what quiet is until you've stood under humming fluorescent lights at 11:45 p.m., waiting for the clock to crawl toward midnight, while your own footsteps echo back at you. It's not silence, it's pressure, the kind that makes you aware of every squeak in the tiles, every flicker in the overhead bulbs, every reflection in the convex mirrors bolted above the aisles. And maybe that's where this all started. In the quiet, I should back up. My name is, well, I probably shouldn't say it here. Not anymore. If he's watching, if he's still out there, no, you don't need my name. Just imagine me as someone you might pass in a store and never think about again. That's who I was. Unremarkable, invisible, until he saw me. That night was like any other. A couple of stragglers buying snacks, some teenagers laughing too loud in the candy aisle, a woman with her toddler who kept crying until she dragged him out. By 11:30 the place was mine, just me, the register, and the buzz of lights that always seemed one breath away from dying. I'd just finished restocking some cheap laundry detergent when I noticed him. At first, he didn't look like much. Hoodie pulled up, hands in his pockets, just another customer wasting time before close. He stood in the canned food aisle, not moving, not browsing, just standing. That's what made me notice. People move. They pick things up, compare prices, pretend to think before tossing it in the basket. But him, he was still, too still. I told myself he was probably waiting for someone. A girlfriend, maybe, grabbing something from another aisle. But we were empty, just me and him. I don't know how long I watched before I forced myself to look away. I busied myself with the register, flipping through receipts, anything to stop staring. But when I glanced back, he was gone. I felt this little drop in my stomach, like missing a step on the stairs. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps, the scrape of a shoe against tile. I craned my neck, and there he was, 2 aisles over now, closer to me. I called out, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Be professional. Sir? We close in 15. No response. He just kept browsing, or pretending to. His hand would drift over boxes, cans, packages, but he never picked anything up. I swallowed, suddenly dry-mouthed. You need help finding something? That's when he turned. Not all the way, just enough for me to see the lower half of his face beneath the hood. And then, casual as if we'd known each other forever, he said my name. My knees nearly gave out. I told myself he must have overheard it. Maybe a co-worker said it earlier in the night. Maybe my name tag had slipped into view. But I'd taken it off hours ago. It was stuffed in my purse behind the counter. Excuse me? I managed, my voice higher than I wanted. He smiled, not big, not obvious. Just a twitch at the corner of his mouth. That's your name, isn't it? My skin crawled. How? How do you know that? Everybody knows it, he said, calm, gentle even, like he was explaining something I should have already understood. I laughed nervously. Because what else do you do? Well, I'm not everybody. Care to tell me how you found out? He tilted his head, still staring. You told me. I didn't. I swear I didn't. But the worst part, for a split second I doubted myself. Had I said it without realizing? Did I want him to know? The thought made me sick. I backed away, fumbling for my phone. Look, sir, we're closing now. I'll need you to head to the register if you're buying something. He didn't move, just stood there, hands in his pockets like he was rooted to the floor. Finally, after what felt like forever, he murmured, "See you soon." And then he walked out. Not rushed, not hurried, just walked, as if he knew I wouldn't stop him. When the automatic doors shut behind him, I realized I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. Later, when my co-worker came in to cover the overnight, I told him what happened. He laughed, said I was paranoid. You probably just forgot you told him your name, he said, tossing his jacket over the counter. You're wound too tight. Working nights does that to people. Maybe he was right. Maybe I did tell the man my name without realizing. But I keep coming back to that smile. That half smile, like he'd already won something I didn't know I was playing for. And the part that keeps me up at night. When I checked the security cameras the next day, the aisle where I swore he'd been standing was empty. No figure, no movement, just static shadows between shelves. So maybe my co-worker's right. Maybe I imagined him. Maybe I've been alone too long, buried in fluorescent lights and aisles of things nobody needs. But then again, if I imagined him, how did he know my name? And why did I see him again? Waiting for me in the parking lot the very next night. The thing about paranoia is, it doesn't feel like paranoia when you're in it. It feels like proof. Every shadow, every echo, every pair of footsteps you hear when no one's behind you. It's not your imagination, it's evidence. That's how I justified what happened next. Because the night after he first said my name, I swear I saw him waiting for me in the parking lot. Dollar Haven sits on the edge of town, tucked between an old laundromat and a half-empty strip mall where most of the storefronts have for lease signs. At night, the parking lot feels like a stage, lit only by these tall orange lamps that buzz and draw swarms of moths. My car is always parked near the far end, because by the time I get there, all the closer spots are taken, which means every shift, I have to walk that long stretch alone. And that night, he was there. Not standing close, not making it obvious, just leaning against one of the lampposts, head tilted down, hood still up. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't need to. My chest locked up the second I spotted him. I froze at the door, keys digging into my palm. My co-worker, same guy who brushed me off the night before, was still inside finishing up the till. I could have gone back in. I could have asked him to walk me out, but I didn't, because part of me thought, if I pointed him out, he wouldn't be there. Just like the cameras, just like the aisle. I started walking, forcing myself not to speed up. The lot was so quiet I could hear the gravel crunch under my shoes. I kept telling myself not to look. Don't give him the satisfaction. But of course I did. And he was looking right at me. He didn't move, didn't call out, didn't smile this time. Just watched, his head turned slowly as I passed, his eyes tracking me like a camera lens. I fumbled into my car, locked the doors, and jammed the key into the ignition so hard I thought it might snap. For a moment the headlights washed over him, and then, I swear this is true, he was gone. Not walked away, not ducked out of view. Gone. The lamppost was empty. I didn't breathe until I was halfway home. Now, this is the part where I'm supposed to say I called the cops, right? Reported him? But I didn't. I told myself I did at first. I even said it out loud to a friend later that week. Yeah, I called. They said they'd keep an eye out. But that was a lie. I didn't call anyone. Why? Because what would I say? Some guy said my name and then stood in a parking lot. They'd laugh at me, just like my coworker did. So instead, I carried it with me. I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe it wasn't even the same guy, but then he started showing up elsewhere. Once I saw him across the street from my apartment building, just a dark shape under the flickering street lamp. Another time, I swear he followed me in the grocery store, though every time I turned, he'd already be in another aisle. Or maybe it wasn't him at all. Maybe it was just a dozen different men who all looked the same in my head. Hood up, face shadowed, watching. That's what paranoia does. It turns the world into clones. But then came the whisper. That's when I knew it was him. It was raining that night. Soft drizzle making the lot shine like glass. I had just locked the store when I heard it. My name. Not shouted. Not even spoken. Whispered. Low and close, like someone leaning right against my ear. I spun around. The lot was empty. My coworker had left early. It was just me. Who's there? My voice cracked. No answer. I hurried to my car, scanning every shadow, every corner. I told myself I was imagining it again, that I was just tired. But when I sat inside, heart hammering, I heard it again. Not outside this time. Inside, right behind me. I whipped around, but the back seat was empty. Nothing but the old hoodie I keep there for emergencies. That's when I realized I'd left my phone on the counter inside. I thought about going back for it, but something in me screamed not to, like if I opened that door, he'd be waiting. So I drove home in silence, headlights cutting through the rain, the sound of my windshield wipers the only proof I hadn't lost my mind completely. The next day, I asked my neighbor, Claire, if she'd noticed anything weird around the building lately. She looked at me funny. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I don't know. Just like a guy hanging around, watching," she laughed nervously. "You mean like a stalker?" I shrugged, trying to make it sound casual. "Maybe," she shook her head. "No, nothing like that. You sure you're not just stressed?" I wanted to scream at her. "Yes, I'm stressed, because someone keeps following me." But instead, I just nodded and muttered, "Yeah, probably just stressed." That night, though, I sat by my window for hours, staring at the street below. Every car that passed made me flinch. Every shadow stretched too long under the lamps. And around 2 a.m., I saw him again. Not in the street this time. Not under a lamp. At the edge of the parking lot, half hidden by the dumpster. Watching. Always watching. And here's the worst part. The part I probably shouldn't even tell you. When I blinked, when I rubbed my eyes and looked again, the dumpster wasn't there. There's never been a dumpster behind my building. I don't know what's real anymore. But I do know this. If you ever find yourself alone in a parking lot at night and you feel eyes on you, don't look! Don't turn around, because once you see him, once he knows you've seen him, he follows you everywhere. And if you follow him back, like I did, he'll lead you to places that aren't supposed to exist, like the basement under Dollar Haven. I need you to promise me something before I tell you this part. Promise you won't try to fact-check it. Don't go looking up Dollar Haven blueprints or old maps of the building, because if you do, you'll say I'm lying. You'll say there is no basement, and maybe you'll be right. But I was there, or at least I think I was. It started the night I finally decided to follow him. Not because I was brave, don't get the wrong idea. I wasn't trying to be some hero. I just couldn't take it anymore. The whispers, the shadows, the way he always seemed one step ahead. It was like drowning in silence, and the only way out was down. That night, I stayed late after close, pretending to finish paperwork, though my hands were shaking too much to write anything. I kept telling myself, if he's real, if he's really out there, he'll come in. He always comes in, and he did. I heard the door chime, that soft little ding that usually makes me want to scream by the end of a shift. But this time, it was the sweetest sound in the world, because it meant I wasn't crazy. He was here. He didn't browse this time. He didn't linger. He just stood at the far end of the store, staring straight at me. I almost lost my nerve right then. My knees locked. My throat burned. But then he turned, slow and steady, and walked toward the back. Toward the stockroom. I followed. Now, this is where it gets confusing. I've walked that stockroom 100 times. I know every shelf, every stack of boxes, every squeaky tile. There's no trapdoor, no staircase, nothing. But that night, there was. Tucked behind the shelves of cleaning supplies, half hidden by shadow, I saw it. A narrow, rusted staircase leading down into the dark. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. It was still there, and he was already halfway down. I don't remember deciding to follow. My feet just moved. Every step groaned under my weight, the air growing colder the deeper I went. The light from above shrank until it was swallowed by the dark. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a room that smelled of wet concrete and old iron. The walls dripped with condensation, and the floor was slick under my shoes. There were shelves down there, metal, rusted, lined with things that didn't belong. Not store supplies, not cleaning products. Things like Polaroids. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, pinned to the walls and scattered across the floor. I bent down, picked one up. My stomach turned. It was me, not from work, not from anywhere I recognized. It was me in my apartment, brushing my teeth. Another of me sleeping in bed. Another of me in the shower. Steam blurring the edges, but not enough to hide the fact that it was me. My fingers went numb. The picture slipped, fluttered to the ground. That's when I heard him. "You told me your name," he whispered. His voice was behind me, though when I turned, he was across the room. "You've always told me." "No," I croaked, but it came out weak, childlike. "I didn't." "You did," he said again, calm, certain. "You wanted me to know you." Something snapped in me. I lunged, grabbing at his hood, desperate to finally see his face. My hands closed on fabric, and nothing. The hood fell limp in my grip, empty. But I swear I heard laughter. Not loud, not mocking, just soft, almost affectionate. Then, this is where it all blurs. I saw something in the far corner. A mirror, old, cracked, leaning against the wall. And in it, I saw myself. Not just a reflection, a second me, standing in the basement, clutching the Polaroid I dropped, smiling that same half-smile he'd given me the first night. I staggered back, shaking my head. No, that's not..." "See?" the reflection whispered. Or maybe it was him. Or maybe it was me. "I've always been here." The basement spun around me. The walls seemed to breathe, the shelves pulsing in and out. I remember falling, my knees hitting the cold concrete, When I woke up, I was lying on the stockroom floor. No staircase, no basement, just the hum of the fluorescent lights above. I thought maybe I'd dreamed it. Maybe the stress finally broke me. But when I checked my pocket, there was a Polaroid inside of me sleeping. So here's the truth, or at least the version I can give you. There is no basement under Dollar Haven. Not according to the blueprints, not according to anyone else, but I've been there, or I dreamed it, or I made it. And the man, sometimes I think he was never real at all, that he was just me, waiting in parking lots, watching myself from the shadows. That's why the cameras never saw him. That's why the dumpster wasn't there. That's why the mirror smiled back. But other nights, when I'm alone in bed, I hear it again. That whisper, my name, so soft, so close. And when I turn, well, that's why I'm telling you this. Because if you ever hear your name spoken in an empty room, don't answer, don't look. Because once he knows your name, once he's inside your head, you'll follow him too, down into the basement that doesn't exist. That night, I couldn't stay in the apartment. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with essentials, and left. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move. I couldn't let the shadows trap me there. The streets were empty, the air heavy with fog. Street lamps flickered overhead. My shadow stretched ahead of me, twisting around corners before I could see what lay beyond them. I followed it. I don't know why. It led me through alleys, down streets I didn't recognize, past boarded-up shops and darkened houses. My feet ached, but I couldn't stop. The shadow darted ahead like it was pulling me on a leash. And then I saw it. Alex's house. The front door was ajar. I stood frozen at the edge of the yard, heart pounding. The shadow slipped inside before I could move. My legs carried me forward, trembling. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and something metallic. The lights were off, but I didn't need them. I knew where to go. The kitchen. The blood stain was still there, dark and sticky against the tile. My knees buckled as memories flooded back. Alex's voice, his hands raised, the knife glinting in my hand. I didn't mean to, I whispered. But even as I said it, another voice whispered back, soft and familiar. Yes, you did. I spun around, but the room was empty, except for my shadow. It stretched across the floor, no longer mimicking my movements. It was standing on its own now, towering over me. Stop, I whispered, backing away. The shadow moved closer. Please. It reached for me, and I stumbled back into the kitchen table. My hand brushed something cold, an envelope. I grabbed it, tearing it open with trembling hands. Inside, you did it. I just helped you remember. I dropped the letter. My shadow loomed larger, swallowing the room. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I had killed Alex, but I hadn't done it alone. The shadow had led me, guided me, and now it wanted me to finish what I'd started. I don't know how long I've been in this house now. Hours, days. The sun doesn't rise anymore. The windows are just dark glass, like mirrors reflecting back my fear. The shadow stays close, whispering softly, guiding my hands as I write these words. If anyone finds this, know that I didn't mean for it to happen. Not at first, but now. Now I think I was always meant to, and I think I know who's next. Story number 3. They told me the town didn't exist, not just that it was abandoned, but that it had never been real. Just a name buried in some old government paperwork. But if that's true, then tell me why I still remember living there, and why I can't explain how I got out. You ever see a place on paper that shouldn't exist, but you still remember living there? That's what happened to me, and I swear, no matter what the records say, that town was real. I wasn't even looking for it. I was at the library scrolling through a digital archive of survey maps for a project I don't even remember anymore. Boring bureaucratic stuff. But then my eyes snagged on a name printed in faded ink, tucked between 2 county borders. a name I knew too well, the town where I grew up, except no one else had ever heard of it. At first, I thought it was a glitch, maybe an old draft, a town that got renamed, but when I searched the database, nothing came up. Census reports, empty, postal records, never existed. It was as if the place had been scrubbed out of history. And yet there it was, spelled out in shaky letters across an old government map. My stomach knotted, because I knew that town wasn't imaginary. I could picture the streets, the broken sidewalks, the school with the rusted playground. I could remember nights sitting by the water tower with her, the one person who made that place feel less like a cage and more like home. I can't say her name, not yet. But I remember her laugh, sharp and reckless, carrying across the field when everyone else was asleep. I remember her fingers brushing mine like it was an accident, though it never was. I remember the way she'd whisper, "We have to get out of here," and how I'd nod even though I wasn't ready to leave. I should have left when she wanted to. Maybe then none of this would have happened. The deeper I dug, the stranger it got. I searched for obituaries, property sales, anything that could prove the town had been real. Nothing. It was like someone had poured bleach over every scrap of evidence until only a faint outline remained. But bleach doesn't erase memories. That's what I kept telling myself as the nights blurred together. My desk littered with printouts and scribbled notes. I compared aerial photos, old newspaper clippings, even weather reports. There were gaps, places where the data just cut off, like the world had blinked and forgotten. And still, I remembered. The diner with the sticky floors, the corner store where we'd steal candy when we were too broke to pay, the old quarry where we'd lie on our backs and count satellites until the sun came up. She was always there in those memories, always pushing me further than I wanted to go, always daring me to cross lines I didn't think I could. Maybe that's why I stayed obsessed with the paperwork, because every time I stared at the map, at the name of the town that officially didn't exist, I felt like I was staring at her too, like she was hiding in the margins, waiting for me to find her again. I told myself it was just nostalgia, but the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of why the records didn't match my memories, afraid of what I'd done the night I left. See, when you grow up in a place like that, you think you'll never leave. The roads don't lead anywhere. The horizon just circles you back in. But she wanted more. She wanted out. And the last night we spoke, if you could call it speaking, was the night she told me she'd found a way. Only, I didn't follow. I can still see her face in the glow of the streetlight, her eyes furious, mouth trembling. She said I'd regret it, that I'd regret staying behind, that the town itself was already dying. And maybe she was right, because when I went back the next day, she was gone. No note, no goodbye, no trace. And then the town itself vanished too. Not physically, of course. The buildings were still there for a while. But on paper, on record, in the eyes of the world, it was as if it had never existed. So when I found that map, her town, our town, I couldn't let it go. It was proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that she was real, that I didn't imagine her or invent a past to fill the empty years. But the more I clung to that proof, the more the details started to slip. Some nights I remembered her hair being dark, other nights it was light. Some nights she kissed me first, other nights I swore I kissed her. Even her name, it flickered, like static, on the edge of my mind. Maybe that's why the records were blank. Maybe I've been the one rewriting things all along. I tried talking about it once, to someone who knew me back then. I asked if they remembered the town. They just gave me this long, pitying look, like I'd confessed to hearing voices. They said I must be confusing it with someplace else, that I'd been under a lot of stress. But I know stress doesn't explain the photographs I found in an old shoebox last week. Photographs of streets I shouldn't remember, of faces blurred by age but one unmistakable, hers, standing next to me, hand brushing mine, just like I said. Only, the problem is, in one of the photos, there's someone else standing behind us. Someone I don't remember. Someone staring straight into the lens like they knew I'd find it one day. I haven't told anyone about that photo. Not yet. Because I'm starting to think, maybe the records are right. Maybe the town never existed the way I remember. Maybe she never did either. But if that's true, then who's the girl in those photographs? And who's the man behind us, smiling like he knows the ending before I do? The map was proof, yes, but it wasn't the only thing I found. There was something else, something I wish I'd burned. You ever hold something in your hands that feels heavier than its weight, like it's dragging your whole past back with it? That's how it felt when I found the folder in my basement. It wasn't there before. I know that sounds impossible, but I swear I'd searched every box, every moldy corner a dozen times. And yet, one night, tucked beneath a stack of old tax returns, it appeared. Yellowed manila, warped with moisture, the edges curling like it had been waiting for me. I should have burned it. God, I should have. But instead, I opened it. Inside were documents, handwritten reports, photocopied letters, even faded Polaroids. They all pointed to the same place, the same town, my town, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. Only the details didn't match my memory. One letter claimed the town had been condemned in 1978, before I was even born. Another listed its population as fewer than 50, when I remembered crowded classrooms and busy streets. A report from some government agency I'd never heard of described psychological leakage, whatever that meant, as if the place itself was an infection. And then there were the photos, buildings I half recognized, but with signs in the windows I couldn't read. Letters scrambled like they belonged to a language I'd never learned. Faces of children that looked familiar but not quite, like bad copies of kids I'd grown up with. And always, somewhere near the corner of the frame, him, the man I didn't remember, the man from the photo in the shoebox. I slammed the folder shut and shoved it back under the boxes like hiding it could erase what I'd seen. But the damage was done. The images were in my head, carved there, impossible to scrape out. For nights I didn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me think the man from the photos was here, waiting just out of sight. I told myself it was paranoia, exhaustion. But then the phone rang. It was her brother. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since she disappeared. His voice was rougher, heavier, like he'd aged 2 decades in half the time. "You still chasing ghosts?" he asked. My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" He gave this sharp, humorless laugh. "You know what I mean. I saw you in the archive." I froze. "The archive? I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. "You were there," he said. "2 nights ago, down in the basement, flipping through files that don't belong to you. I watched you. I wanted to hang up, but my hand wouldn't move." "That's not possible," I whispered. "Stop digging," he told me. "Whatever you think you're going to find, it won't be her." The line went dead. I stared at the receiver, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. How did he know about the basement, about the folder, unless he put it there himself? I didn't want to believe it, but part of me hoped it was true. At least that would mean the man in the photos wasn't real. At least that would mean I wasn't losing my mind. The next evening, I went back down. The folder was gone. All that remained was a single Polaroid on the floor, face down. When I picked it up, my skin went cold. It was me, standing outside the old water tower, the same one where she and I used to sit, except I looked older. Not the age I was when we left, the age I am now. And next to me, smiling like he belonged there, was her brother. That's when I knew this wasn't just about memory. Someone was pulling strings. Someone wanted me to see these things. The next day, I found him waiting outside my house. He looked thinner than I remembered, eyes ringed with sleepless shadows. But his stare was sharp, burning with something between rage and pity. "You shouldn't have kept looking," he said. What's going on? I demanded. Why are there records? Why is the town gone? He stepped closer, so close I could smell smoke on his jacket. Because it was never meant to be remembered. You understand that, don't you? I shook my head. No, she was real. I loved her. I remember everything. He smiled then, but it wasn't kind. You remember what you need to, not what happened. What do you mean? She left, he said simply. She left because of you. My chest tightened. No, she didn't. She couldn't have. You think the town vanished on its own? You think files just erased themselves? Someone had to cover it up. Someone had to bury the pieces. I swallowed hard. Are you saying it was me? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, long enough that I wanted to scream. Then he whispered, some destinations exist only in paperwork, and you're the one who wrote it. I blinked, and he was gone. I don't mean he walked away. I mean, 1 second he was standing in front of me, the next the street was empty. Not a door closing, not footsteps fading, just silence. I backed into my house and locked the door, shaking so bad I could barely stand. Was he ever there at all? That night, I dreamed of the basement, of the folder waiting for me. But when I opened it, the papers were blank, every page white, except for the last one. It said, she's still there. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the taste of dust in my mouth. And when I went downstairs, there was dirt on the basement steps, fresh footprints, not mine. So maybe he's right. Maybe I've been chasing ghosts. Maybe I've been writing my own past into existence, one forged document at a time. But the footprints are real. The photo was real, and I can't stop wondering if she's waiting for me, trapped somewhere between memory and paper. Because if she is, I have to go back, and I have to see what's left of the town. You ever drive somewhere that isn't supposed to exist, but the road takes you there anyway? That's what happened the night I went back. I told myself it was curiosity, closure, obsession, whatever makes it sound less insane. The truth? I couldn't stop hearing her voice. Not out loud, not in dreams, just a whisper at the edge of my thoughts, urging me back. I left after midnight. The road stretched black and endless, highway signs flickering past like broken memories. At first, everything looked familiar. The gas stations, the fields, the distant lights of towns that actually exist. But then the markers thinned and the GPS froze. Just a blinking arrow on an empty screen. Still, I drove on. After an hour, I reached the turnoff. It shouldn't have been there. The map said nothing existed beyond that point. Yet there it was, a cracked road curving into the woods, just wide enough for one car. My headlights caught the faded outline of a sign, letters peeling away. I swear it said the town's name, the one no one believes in. As I drove in, the trees pressed close, their branches scraping against the roof like fingernails. My chest tightened with every mile, and then, suddenly, the forest opened. There it was, the town, not bustling, not alive, just frozen. Buildings sagging with rot, windows blind with dust, street lamps tilting like drunks. But it was there, exactly where it wasn't supposed to be. I pulled over near the water tower, the same one from the photos, the same one from my memories. I stepped out, my breath visible in the cold air, and for a second, I felt like a kid again, like I could almost hear her laugh carrying across the fields. But then the silence closed in. I wandered the streets. The diner was still there, its sign swinging in the wind. The school loomed in the distance, windows cracked like shattered teeth. Every corner held echoes I couldn't pin down. And then I saw him, the man from the photos, standing at the far end of the street, too far for me to see his face, but I knew it was him. I froze, heart hammering. "Who are you?" I shouted, no answer. He just turned the corner and vanished. I followed. I shouldn't have, but I did. Down alleys that twisted the wrong way, past houses I half recognized. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have, like the town was hollow underneath. Finally, I reached the house. Our house. The one she and I used to sneak into when we wanted to be alone. Its windows were boarded, the porch sagging, but I knew it instantly. The front door was already open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew. I could see the faint outline of furniture where we once sat, the stains on the floor where we spilled soda, the staircase we raced up when we thought the world was ending, and at the top of the stairs, him again, closer now, watching. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. "What do you want from me?" I demanded. This time, he spoke. His voice was low, steady, like it belonged to someone who'd been practicing for years. "She's still here." My skin went cold. "Where?" He didn't answer. He just turned and walked into the bedroom. I followed, every step heavier than the last. The room was empty, except for a single piece of paper on the floor. A map, not the one I'd found in the archive. This one was hand-drawn, scribbled in shaky lines, but it showed the same town, and marked with an X was the quarry. I grabbed it, but when I looked up, the man was gone. My pulse thundered as I stumbled out of the house, clutching the map like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The quarry was only a mile away. My legs carried me faster than I thought possible. When I reached it, the moon was high, casting silver over jagged rock. I climbed down into the pit, the air colder, thicker, and there, at the center, was her. At least I think it was her. She was sitting on the ground, head bowed, hair falling over her face. My chest clenched so tight I thought I'd collapse. "Hey," I whispered, stepping closer. "It's me. I found you." Slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark. Her smile trembled at the edges. "You finally came back," she said. Tears burned my eyes. "I thought you were gone. You left me," she interrupted. Her voice wasn't angry, it was worse. It was calm. I shook my head. "No, I wanted to..." "You left me," she repeated louder this time. I dropped to my knees. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. Everything was falling apart." "Do you even remember my name?" she asked. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mind scrambled, grasping at sounds, syllables, but they slipped like water through my fingers. Her smile faded. That's what I thought. The ground shook, not like an earthquake, more like the town itself exhaled. Dust rained down, the rocks groaned, and in the distance I swore I heard voices. Dozens of them, hundreds, all whispering. She stood, her eyes never leaving mine. "This town remembers, even if you don't." And then, she was gone. I was alone in the quarry, clutching the map, the whispers closing in. I ran. I don't remember how I got back to the car, how I made it out of the woods. All I remember is the silence when I pulled into my driveway, the folder waiting on the porch, the same folder I'd hidden, the same one her brother told me not to touch. I brought it inside, hands shaking, opened it. Every page was filled now. Not blank, not faded, filled with my handwriting, confessions I don't remember writing, descriptions of things I don't remember doing. Every lie I've told you, every truth I've twisted, it was all there. And at the bottom of the last page, scrawled in frantic ink, "Some destinations exist only in paperwork that no one was meant to find. I don't know if the town was ever real. I don't know if she was. But if you're still watching this, check your basement, because if the folder's not here anymore, it might be there." Story number 4. I never told anyone what I said that night. Not the police, not the neighbors, not even myself when I look in the mirror. But the machine remembers every word, every silence, and it keeps playing it back, even though it was never supposed to be listening. I never pressed record. That's the part nobody seems to understand. I never pressed record, and yet my voice is on the tape. That's how this started. Not with a scream or a fight or blood on the floor. No, with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but heavy, like someone else is holding their breath in the same room. I've lived here for years, alone. That word always sounds sharp, doesn't it? Alone. But it doesn't bother me, not really. I've always talked to myself, Just little things. Reminders, confessions, thoughts too fragile to keep inside my skull. Sometimes it helps to hear them out loud, or at least it used to. The apartment's old. You can tell by the wiring. Half the sockets spark if you look at them wrong, and the intercom system on the wall. You know the kind. Big yellowed plastic box, scratched speaker grill, a button you're never sure still works. Nobody uses it. Nobody buzzes. It's been dead for as long as I've been here. But then one night, it wasn't. I'd been pacing the kitchen, mumbling the way I do when the walls feel too close. I said something I shouldn't have. Words I've never admitted before. Doesn't matter what they were. You wouldn't believe me anyway. A secret, a slip of the tongue. And the second I said it, the intercom clicked. Just a tiny pop, like static clearing its throat. And then, my voice. My exact words played back, like someone hit rewind and pressed play. Only the timing was wrong. It wasn't a clean echo. It was delayed, like someone else had been sitting on the other side of the line, deciding whether or not to repeat me. I froze. My first thought? Wires. Old buildings do weird things with sound. Maybe I'd caught interference from a neighbor's TV, but it wasn't a TV show. It was me. You shouldn't have said that. That's what I heard next. My own voice, but lower, as if dragged through sandpaper. And I swear to you, I never said those words out loud. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Not really, I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I imagined the intercom glowing, recording, waiting for me to slip again. And maybe it was paranoia, but the more I listened, the more I realized it had been listening for a long time. Because the next night, it played back something older, a fragment of a conversation I'd had weeks before, one I'd forgotten about. I'd been talking to my neighbor. She lived just down the hall. Sweet voice, always humming when she walked by. Sometimes she'd stop me on the stairs, ask about my day, tell me about hers. She liked jasmine tea. She smelled like it too. I never told her how much I noticed that, how much I noticed her. But that night, the intercom played a sentence from one of our last talks, my voice saying something soft, something I'd whispered under my breath after she left, words I never thought anyone would hear. And then her voice answered, faint, fragile, but hers. Why didn't you tell me? I stumbled back so hard I nearly tripped over the chair. Because she wasn't in the apartment, she wasn't anywhere near me. But I knew that voice. I'd heard it too many times to mistake it. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that dead plastic box, waiting for it to speak again. My chest was tight, every hair on my arm standing straight, and then the silence returned. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream, a hallucination. Maybe I'd been too tired. But the tape, yes, there was a tape. I don't remember putting it in. I didn't even know the machine still had that function. But when I checked the slot, a cassette sat inside, warm, as if it had just finished recording. And when I pressed play, I heard everything again. My voice, her voice. Words twisted into something I couldn't control. I should have destroyed it then. I should have smashed the tape, ripped the wires out of the wall, but I didn't. Because deep down, I wanted to hear more. That's what makes me guilty, isn't it? Not of what they think, but of something else. Of listening when I should have turned away. The next time it happened, I tried to talk back. Who's there? I asked, my mouth dry, the words scraping out, and the reply came, clear as day. You know, but I don't. At least I don't think I do. Unless I'm lying to myself. Unless part of me remembers more than I'm willing to admit. That night, I heard her again. My neighbor, only this time she wasn't calm. Please, she whispered. Please don't leave me here. Where is here? I pressed the button, begged for an answer, but all I got was static. Do you understand now why I can't go to the police? Why I can't explain this without sounding insane? Machines don't just record conversations at random. They don't play back secrets you've buried, and they sure as hell don't capture voices that shouldn't be alive anymore. Because here's the part I haven't told you yet. She's gone. vanished. No one's seen her in weeks. People whisper about where she went, but no one has answers. And me, I'm the last person who spoke to her. At least, that's what they'll say. But I didn't hurt her. I need you to believe that. Still, I can't stop wondering. If I didn't, then why does the intercom keep replaying our last conversation? Why does it linger on her voice, stretched out, like she's still trying to reach me from somewhere I can't follow? And why, last night, when I leaned close to the speaker, did I hear something new? Not just her, not just me. Another voice, low, mechanical, whispering. This is only the beginning. They keep asking me what I remember, but memory doesn't play like a tape. It skips, it rewinds, sometimes it lies. Just like me. That's what I told the detective the first time he came knocking. I thought it was clever, deflecting, making him uncomfortable, but he didn't laugh. He just wrote something in his notebook without looking up, and the sound of his pen scratching felt louder than my voice. The neighbors had started talking, whispers slinking down the hallway, curling under my door. They said she'd gone missing, my neighbor, the one whose voice I'd heard bleeding through that dead intercom, begging for something I couldn't give. And of course, because people need someone to blame, their eyes landed on me. I didn't mind at first. Let them suspect. The truth is slipperier than they realize. The truth doesn't sit still, but then the machine played something new. I was lying awake, the cassette still in its slot, when the intercom hissed alive. At first, it was just the usual fragments of my voice, repeated back like a cruel mimic. But then, her again. Don't leave me in the dark. Her voice cracked in ways I'd never heard when she was alive. No, wait, I didn't mean to say alive, I meant when she was here. She might still be alive, somewhere. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what's memory, what's recording, and what's me inventing things to fill the gaps. The next day, I told the building manager. Old man, always smells like bleach and cigarette smoke. I cornered him by the mailboxes, tried to explain that the intercom wasn't dead, that it was capturing things it shouldn't. You've been here long enough to know that box doesn't work, he said flatly. Not even looking at me. It does, I snapped. It plays things back. My voice. Her voice, that made him pause. His eyes twitched, but only for a second. Then he shook his head and muttered, "You're hearing echoes. Old wiring. Forget it." But I couldn't forget it, because the night after that, the intercom played a full conversation I swear never happened. Me, calm, steady, saying things I would never dare to say, and her, laughing, then suddenly crying. It was stitched together like someone had cut up our words and glued them into something new, something uglier. I didn't remember saying half of it, but the voice was mine. So when the detectives came knocking, I knew exactly why. Two of them. One tall and silent, the other short with a mouth that wouldn't stop moving. They asked about her, about when I'd last seen her. I told them she'd stepped into my apartment once, but only for tea. That part was true, or maybe it wasn't. "You said tea," the short one repeated. But no one else remembers her drinking tea. They say she didn't like it. He leaned forward, like he'd caught me in a trap. But I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. She told me she liked jasmine. She told me herself. Unless I dreamed that too. Unless the machine fed it to me. They asked if we argued. If she ever rejected me. If I'd ever felt angry at her. I told them no. Easy answer. But in my head, I heard my voice on the tape. That strange version of me. Sharper and crueler. You shouldn't have said that. What if that was me after all? I keep telling myself I didn't hurt her. Over and over like a prayer. But the more I listen to the tapes, the more I wonder if some part of me broke off and did something without telling the rest of me. Because how else do you explain the things I hear at night? Last night, for example, the playback changed again. It didn't just repeat voices. It played sounds, shuffling footsteps, something like a door creaking open, and then a thud, heavy, final. I slammed the stop button, my hand shaking so hard I nearly snapped it off. But curiosity is poison. I pressed play again. And there it was. A whisper, almost too soft to hear. You promised. I don't remember making any promise, but the way she said it, accusing, broken, it lodged in my chest like a splinter. When the detectives came back the next day, I tried to explain. I told them about the tapes, about the intercom. They stared at me like I'd just confessed to burying her under the floorboards. "There's no tape," the tall one said finally. "We checked the system. That intercom hasn't been wired in years." Liar. Or maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe the system had been dead until me, until my words gave it something to feed on. Do you see the problem now? I can't prove what I'm hearing. I can only tell you. And telling you makes me sound guilty. But staying silent makes me sound worse. The building manager won't meet my eyes anymore. Every time I pass his office, I hear the hiss of a cassette player through the thin door. Does he have his own tapes? Does he know more than he admits? Or maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm imagining everything, because sometimes when I rewind, the voices don't just echo. They change. They argue. With me. Against me. "You brought me here," she says. "No," I whisper back. "You left me," she insists. "I didn't." And then the machine cuts me off, my own voice spitting venom I don't remember recording. "You wanted this. Do you understand why I can't trust myself anymore? The detectives will come again, I know it, and when they ask, I won't have answers. I'll only have these tapes, these shifting ghosts of conversations, none of which will make sense to anyone but me. Still, part of me doesn't want it to stop, because if the tapes end, so does her voice, and I'm not ready for silence again. But if I keep listening, I'm afraid of what I'll hear next, because last night, just before the tape clicked off, just before the machine went quiet, it wasn't her voice or mine. It was the tall detective, clear as glass. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Only problem. He never spoke those words to me, not out loud, so how the hell did the machine know? If you rewind something too many times, the tape stretches, the voices blur, and eventually you can't tell if you're hearing the past or what's coming next." That's where I am now. Stuck between past and future, between what I did and what I keep telling myself I didn't do. The intercom hasn't gone silent in days. Every night it breathes to life, spitting fragments, twisting them, layering them until the apartment feels crowded with echoes. I can't walk from the kitchen to the bedroom without stepping on my own voice, warped and broken, repeating things I don't remember saying. And hers. Always hers. Sometimes she pleads. Sometimes she accuses. Sometimes she just laughs. A sound so wrong it makes my teeth ache. I tried to unplug the box, yanked at the wires until my hands bled, but when I woke up the next morning, it was still on the wall, humming like I'd never touched it. The detectives came again. I didn't answer the door, but I heard them in the hallway. Their voices drifted in through the crack under the door, muffled but sharp enough to cut. "Neighbor says he's been talking to himself again," one of them muttered. "He's unraveling," the other replied. I pressed my ear to the wood, desperate because I needed to know if they'd found her, if they knew more than I did. But all I heard was the tall one sighing. "We'll get 'em on the tapes. The tapes." That's when it hit me. They weren't dismissing me. They were listening too. Maybe they had their own recordings. Maybe everyone in this building had a machine in their walls, quietly swallowing conversations, deciding which truths to spit back out. That night, I made a decision. I'd confront it. Not the detectives, not the manager, not even the neighbors. The machine. I sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the intercom, cassette ready, and whispered into the grill. "What do you want from me?" For a long time there was only static, and then slow and deliberate, my own voice answered. Confession. I felt sick. Because isn't that what I'm doing now? Isn't that what this is? All these words spilling out like blood from a wound. But confess to what? I didn't kill her, at least, I don't think I did. See, that's the part that keeps me awake. the machine plays things I can't explain. Like the other night, when I heard footsteps dragging, something heavy scraping across the floor, then a door slamming, and then silence, broken by her voice whispering, "It hurt." I don't remember that happening, but if it didn't, why does it sound so real? I tried to prove it wasn't true. I rewound the tape over and over, listening for seams, for splices, for some sign it was fabricated. But the more I listened, the more certain I became. Whether it was real or not, it belonged to me. The building manager knocked yesterday. His face was pale, eyes darting past me like he didn't want to meet them. "You need to stop," he said flatly. "Stop what?" I asked. "Stop listening, that's all." He didn't wait for an answer, just turned and shuffled down the hall, muttering under his breath like a prayer. And then I realized he hears it too. He knows. Maybe he's been listening longer than I have. Maybe that's why the smell of bleach never leaves his clothes. But the detectives won't believe that. They'll only believe the tapes. I can feel them closing in. The whispers are louder, the knocks harder. My apartment isn't safe anymore. The walls hum with suspicion. So tonight, I tried something different. Instead of waiting for the intercom to start, I pressed the record button myself, spoke directly into it, told the truth, or at least the closest I could get. I said I never meant to hurt her, that I loved her voice, the way it filled the hallway like music, that I never wanted her to stop talking to me. And then I said her name. The machine shuddered like it was choking. The tape spun faster. My voice warped, splintered, split into layers until it sounded like 100 versions of me speaking at once. And underneath it all, faint but certain, came her reply. "You already did." I dropped the recorder. It kept spinning, faster, faster, until smoke curled from the slot. And then, in a voice I didn't recognize, neither hers nor mine, the machine spoke. Erase and rewind. And just like that, the tape snapped. The silence that followed was worse than the voices, because it wasn't empty. It was waiting. I haven't left the apartment since. The detectives pound on the door, but I don't open. I can't. If they come in, they'll see the tapes, the wires, the way the walls are breathing now. They'll see me curled on the floor, listening, always listening. I keep telling myself I didn't kill her, but the more the tapes play, the less I believe it. Maybe I lost time. Maybe I did something and the machine is just reminding me. Or maybe the machine is the one lying, feeding me guilt until I choke on it. I don't know which is worse. But here's the part I haven't told anyone. Not the detectives. Not the manager, not even you. Sometimes, when the intercom clicks on, it doesn't play her voice or mine. It plays yours. I heard it last night, a whisper through the static. Keep talking. Don't stop. So that's what I'm doing. Talking. Confessing. Rewinding myself until the words don't mean anything anymore. Because if I stop, I'm afraid of what will replace the silence. And if you're hearing this, if my voice has reached you through a machine that shouldn't even be listening, then you understand. You're part of the tape now. And tapes. Don't forget. Story number 5. I never saw his face that night. At least, that's what I told the police. But if that's true, then how do I still see him every time I close my eyes? I keep telling myself I never went inside that store that night. Not a single step. And yet, I can still see it. Every flickering fluorescent light, every stacked aisle, every small cheap item someone left in their cart. I can hear the registers beeping, smell the scent of plastic and floor cleaner, even though I tell myself none of that should be possible. Because I didn't go inside, or at least that's what I keep repeating. It was a Tuesday, late evening, and the parking lot of the Alderbrook Avenue Dollar Tree looked like a frozen photograph. Empty spaces lined up in neat rows, asphalt slick with recent rain, reflecting the buzzing orange of the streetlights. My car pulled in, tires crunching softly, the engine's hum dying as I parked. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the sliding doors, wondering why I was even there. I told myself I'd just wait, that I wouldn't go in, that I would leave before anyone noticed. And yet, I saw Angela. She was the assistant manager, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes softened by motherly patience. She always wore her hair pulled back, careful and neat, and even from outside the doors, I could hear her voice, ordering, directing, calm but firm. "Check the registers, please." "No, the other one first." It sounded just like her. And yet, moments later, I told myself she hadn't come in that night. She was absent, gone. Only the memory of her voice lingered, teasing me. Or maybe it was just me remembering what I wanted to hear. I remember stepping out of the car. I swear I did. The air was thick with damp, and every step on the puddled asphalt felt exaggerated, heavy. Each breath formed a faint cloud, vanishing too quickly. The sliding doors were there, quiet, humming. I remember hesitating, my fingers grazing the handle. But then I told myself I didn't open it. I couldn't have. I didn't go in. Still, somehow, I saw the interior. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a persistent, oppressive buzz that made my teeth ache. The aisles stretched on, endless rows of dollar-brand snacks, cleaning supplies, and seasonal junk. I saw a customer, a man, maybe 40, balding, picking up a can of beans, examining it like it held the secrets of the universe. Or maybe he wasn't there. Maybe I imagined him. My memory flips like that. One moment he's clear, the next, gone. And then there was the sound of footsteps behind me. Angela again. "You okay?" she asked. Motherly concern in her voice, the faint scent of coffee clinging to her clothes. I flinched, turned, and suddenly she wasn't there. I don't know if it was the sound of the floors squeaking under her shoes, or the memory of her voice echoing in my mind. All I know is that my heart was hammering. And then, across the store, in the cleaning aisle, I saw him. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, standing perfectly still among the mops and buckets, and in his hand, a hammer. I blinked. My eyes couldn't have registered him, and yet they did. The edges of the light caught the metal, glinting, cold, reflective, and I froze, rooted to the spot, trying to convince myself I wasn't inside the store. Because I wasn't, I couldn't have been. I'd promised myself I wouldn't, but I did. I saw him step forward, slow, deliberate, hammer raised slightly, and yet, when I blinked again, he was gone. Just empty floor, perfectly stacked supplies. Nothing disturbed. I remember Angela yelling, somewhere in the distance, calling someone's name. I couldn't make out the words fully, but her tone carried panic. And yet, moments later, I tell myself she was never there that night. I didn't see her, I just remembered her voice. A haunting echo of normalcy that disappeared the instant the man appeared. I don't know why I keep insisting I wasn't inside. Maybe because if I admit it, the truth becomes too heavy. Maybe because the guilt is already too much to bear. I remember the smell of bleach, the faint metallic tang in the air. My hands shook as I gripped a nearby shelf for balance, and then silence. Complete, suffocating silence, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. The aisles stretched longer than they should have, twisting in ways I know they don't physically go. Shadows clung to corners, elongated unnaturally, and then I saw it again. Him, the hammer in his hand, slowly stepping closer. My pulse raced and I wanted to scream, to call out for Angela, for anyone, but my mouth was dry, my throat closed, and just like that, he vanished. I ran out of the store, out of the parking lot. My car was there, waiting, tires slick with rain. I jumped in, doors slammed, engine roared to life, and I drove without thinking, without looking back, except I didn't drive away either. Not really, because I can see the store. Every detail, every flicker of fluorescent light. I can hear the metallic scrape of the hammer against the tile floors echoing through my memory. And I remember Angela perfectly still watching. And I remember thinking too clearly about what might have happened if I hadn't stepped out when I did. I try to push it down, convince myself that I left before anything terrible could happen, that I wasn't there when the horror started. But the details I remember don't lie. The smell of the cleaning aisle, the scattered products, the way the light caught the hammer. I saw too much to claim innocence completely, and the worst part, the memory keeps twisting like it's alive. Sometimes the man in the cleaning aisle doesn't disappear. Sometimes Angela stays, watching, whispering things I can't remember clearly. Sometimes I see my own reflection in the aisles, pale and wide-eyed, staring back at me as though I'd been inside the store all along. I keep telling myself I wasn't. I didn't go in. I left before anything happened. But if that's true, then why does the memory feel so real? Why can I still see him, hammer in hand, stepping toward someone, toward anyone, stepping closer than he should have been? I don't know, and maybe I never will. But I do know this. The memory of that night will never leave me. And the moment I saw that hammer, the way it glinted under the fluorescent lights, I understood one thing. I survived. But the store did not let everyone else. I don't know how I left alive, how I escaped, or why the rest didn't make it. All I know is that every time I close my eyes, every time I drive past that street, I see him and I hear her voice. And I know deep down that even though I insist I wasn't inside, part of me knows I was. I wish I could say I went home that night, that I locked the door, drew the curtains, and tried to pretend it never happened. But I didn't, not really. The images, they followed me. The hum of those fluorescent lights, the smell of cleaning solution, the metallic tang of something I don't want to name. They lingered in my mind, pressing against me until I couldn't ignore them. I remember arriving back at the store, though part of me insists I never left at all. The parking lot was empty again, eerily still. Only the neon sign above the doors buzzed faintly, like a heartbeat I could feel in my chest. I told myself I was imagining it, that the scene I was about to witness couldn't be real, that it was just a memory, distorted by fear and sleep deprivation. But it was there, waiting. Inside, the store smelled wrong. Not just the usual bleach and floor cleaner, something deeper, something wet, coppery. And the aisles, my memory tricks me again. Sometimes they're empty, sometimes I see the chaos. Paper towels scattered, canned goods toppled, shelves cracked and bent as if someone heavy had moved through them in a hurry. And in that chaos, the bodies, I swear I shouldn't have seen them. Angela first, her hair disheveled, her eyes wide with that expression I'll never forget. Shock, horror, betrayal. I think she looked at me, or maybe she didn't. My mind plays with it, rewinding and replaying. And then Reed. He was my co-worker, older than me, secretive, someone I thought I understood. Now he was lying near the registers, a crimson smear beneath him, staring at nothing. And the third one, God, the third one, I can't even name them. Just a shape, an absence, a hole in the world where life used to be, and the man. The one from the cleaning aisle, he moved differently here. His hammer swung, deliberate, almost casual, and yet part of me keeps insisting that I'm remembering this wrong, that maybe it was someone else entirely, that maybe I'm lying to myself. I don't know if I was hiding or helping. Sometimes I remember ducking behind shelves, silent, shaking, praying he wouldn't see me. Other times, I remember standing in the aisle, frozen, a part of me aware that I should intervene, that I could stop him, and yet I didn't, couldn't. The blood, God, the blood. It glistened under the fluorescent lights, dark and heavy, running into the cracks of the floor tiles, seeping into the edges of the registers. Every step I took, every breath I drew, I could feel it on me, and yet, when I tried to reach out, when I imagined wiping it off my shoes, it stayed. The smell lingered. And the sight refused to leave. I remember screaming. I must have, but there's a part of me that insists I didn't. That my mouth stayed dry, throat closed, terror locking any sound inside. Angela's voice again, calling out Reed's name. Or was she calling mine? I can't remember. My memory twists around the sound, reshapes it, hides the truth, and then he stopped. The hammer lowered. A pause so long I thought my heart would burst. And that's when I saw him clearly for the first time. Not a shadow, not a flicker, not a glimpse in a reflection. A face, sharp, pale, almost sculpted in anger and amusement at the same time. And I swore I recognized it. But part of me insists I didn't. Part of me wants to deny it. "Get out!" I shouted once in my mind, maybe out loud, maybe I didn't. But the words never reached him, and he turned slowly, deliberately, toward me. And then, the memory blurs again. I remember Reed's eyes, wide, terrified. He looked at me as if asking why I hadn't stopped this, why I had left him, left everyone, alone in that store. And that's the part I can't reconcile, because I was scared, paralyzed. But maybe there's another part, one that wanted this to happen, one that wanted to survive while they didn't. I told myself over and over that I left before it escalated, that I escaped, that I made it out alive, but the details betray me. The aisles, the blood, the way his hammer glinted. These are not things I should have remembered if I had left. And yet I did remember. I saw it, I felt it, I smelled it, and part of me enjoyed the rush of it, the terrible, horrible thrill of knowing I survived while they didn't. The aftermath, I shouldn't have seen it either. Police lines, flashing lights, neighbors peering in from the street, their faces blurred in my memory. But it didn't make sense. I don't think I ever told them everything. Couldn't, because then they would have known. They would have known my guilt, my inaction, my complicity. I spoke to officers, I gave statements, but every word was a lie, or at least a carefully curated truth. I hid the way I'd frozen in the aisle. I hid the glimpses of recognition, the twisted sense that I knew him. I didn't say how Angela's eyes haunted me even after she was gone. I didn't say how Reed's gaze followed me in nightmares accusing me. 2 decades have passed, and yet every time I see a store with fluorescent lights, every time I smell cleaning solution, every time I hear a hammer clang against metal, I remember. I relive it, and every detail shifts, changes, grows. I can't trust my memory. I can't trust my mind. The man with the hammer. He was never caught. And I wonder if that's because he wasn't real. Or if he is, and he's waiting, watching, knowing I survived, knowing I remember too much, knowing I lie too much. And then there's the thing I've never told anyone, not my family, not friends, not the police. Sometimes I see him in reflections, in store windows, in mirrors, not always the same, not always clearly, but always there, smiling, watching, reminding me. And that's the moment I realized something. That night didn't end in the store. It didn't end when the police arrived. It didn't end when the blood was cleaned or when statements were given. No, it continued. And it continues to this day. I shouldn't be here telling you this. I should be silent, but I need someone to know. I need someone to understand. Because the memory doesn't obey me. It grows, it shifts, it hunts. And the truth is buried behind the registers, behind the blood, behind the lies I've told myself for 20 years. And no matter how much I try, I can't dig it out. I survived, but not without a price. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind rattles my windows, I hear the faint scrape of a hammer on tile. And I know he hasn't forgotten me either. I've tried to forget it. Every day for 20 years I've tried. Every time I walked past a store with fluorescent lights. Every time I smelled bleach. Every time I heard a hammer clang somewhere in the distance. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that it was just memory, that it was just fear, but it isn't, not anymore. It started slowly, a flicker in a shop window as I walked past, a shadow behind a glass door. At first, I convinced myself it was coincidence, that I was remembering too much, that my mind was playing tricks, but the more I saw, the more I couldn't ignore it. The reflection always comes first, my own face, pale, tense, wide-eyed, but then it shifts. Behind me, a tall man, broad shoulders, pale skin, a hammer in his hand. I don't remember him walking up. I don't remember him entering the room, and yet he's always there, watching, smiling. That smile, calm, deliberate, knowing, is the same I saw all those years ago. I try to tell myself it's impossible, that it's hallucination, that I survived for a reason, that he isn't real. But then the reflection moves when I don't, when no one else is in the room, and I hear the scrape of the hammer across tile or concrete, soft but unmistakable. I've tried to confront it. Once, I followed the reflection into a store. The aisles were normal, everyday products stacked neatly, customers moving about without noticing me. But the humming fluorescent lights felt wrong, too loud, too persistent. And then I saw him, or at least I thought I did. He wasn't a man anymore. Not really. He was shadows, distorted, impossible angles, a moving void with a hammer. And yet, there were moments when I could swear I saw Reed's face in that shape. Reed, my co-worker, my secret, my guilt, the man I abandoned. I don't know what's real anymore. My memory twists and rewinds. I see events as they might have been, as they could have been, as I wanted them to be. Some nights, I remember standing in that cleaning aisle, frozen, terrified, thinking of Angela's eyes. And sometimes, I remember myself raising the hammer. I don't understand it. I can't. Every mirror, every window, every reflective surface has become a doorway, and every doorway holds the same pale figure, hammer in hand, smiling like he knows everything I've ever hidden, everything I've ever lied about. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night to the faintest sound of metal tapping against tile. I tell myself it's my imagination. I tell myself the floors creak, but I know it's him, or what he's become in my mind. And every time I blink, the reflection waits for me again. Waiting, silent, patient. I've tried talking to people about it, friends, therapists, anyone, but the words catch in my throat. How do you explain a ghost that might not exist? A killer who may only exist inside your own skull? How do you admit that you survived because you froze, because you hid, because you might have let it happen, and yet I have to tell someone? I have to, because if I don't, I feel like he's winning. Every time I see him, I feel the weight of my own inaction pressing down on me, crushing me from the inside. I've seen him in so many places now. Gas stations, grocery stores, reflections in a taxi window. Sometimes I swear he's in my own apartment, just beyond my field of vision. And always, the hammer, the slow, deliberate raise, the glint of metal, the quiet promise that nothing is finished. I wonder sometimes if he's a memory, a punishment, or if he's real and has been following me all these years. And I wonder if I could have stopped it, if I had acted differently that night. But I don't have answers. I only have reflections and fear, and the persistent scrape of metal against floor tiles that no one else hears. And then there are nights when I think I see more. My reflection shifts in ways I don't expect. His face merges with mine. The hammer becomes my own hand. I scream inside my head, trying to separate myself from what I see, trying to convince myself I am not responsible, trying to convince myself that I am not him. But I am. I think I might be. The thought is unbearable, and yet it fits too well. Every detail lines up, every echo of memory, every twitch of fear, every flinch in a mirror. It all points to a truth I've buried, a truth I've avoided, a truth that waits for me behind every reflective surface. I don't know if he's real. I don't know if I am. All I know is that when I look into glass now, when I see my own reflection, I see him. And I see myself. And I realize that surviving that night, surviving wasn't freedom. It was a sentence that never ends. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and my mind won't stop racing, I swear I hear a voice behind me, whispering my name, slow, deliberate, familiar. And then I see it, the hammer, raised, waiting, smiling, and I know he never forgot. Story number 2, the white sedan. A person's sense of safety is shattered when they are relentlessly followed by a mysterious man in a white sedan after a simple trip to the Dollar Tree. You ever get that? Feeling that someone's been watching you all along, even before you notice them? I saw it first in the Dollar Tree parking lot. That white sedan, parked crookedly under the flickering neon sign, headlights off, like it had been waiting for me. And the thing is, I don't even remember if I noticed it when I first walked out, or if it appeared after I was already halfway to my car. Memory doesn't work straight when your paranoia starts building. I shook it off at first. Sure, coincidences happen. People park weirdly all the time. But something about that car, it didn't belong. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop glancing at it. The neon lights above the store flickered in uneven bursts, casting long, jagged shadows across the lot. I could see my breath fogging in the cold night air. The condensation forming tiny beads on the windshield of the white sedan that shouldn't have been there. The glass looked like it was breathing, almost alive, like the car itself was waiting to inhale me whole. I climbed into my car, doors locking automatically with a satisfying click that didn't calm me one bit. My hands shook slightly as I slid the key in. The engine roared to life, echoing too loudly in the near-empty parking lot, and that's when I noticed something. A figure, a man, sitting in the driver's seat of the sedan. Or at least I thought I did. Sometimes I remember it that way. Other times I swear the car was empty, dark and still, and I can't reconcile which memory is real. But in that moment, I felt it. The unmistakable weight of being watched. I didn't say anything at the time. No one else noticed. Jess, my co-worker, was still gathering her purse and adjusting her jacket near the store entrance. She glanced toward the sedan too, and her face twitched with something I didn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or irritation. You see him too, right? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I forced a laugh, one I didn't feel. Probably just some guy waiting for his friend, I said. I tried to sound casual, even confident, but I couldn't stop staring at the car, couldn't stop the creeping thought in the back of my mind that it had been there the entire time I was inside, maybe even longer. She shook her head, nervously twisting the strap of her purse. It's weird. I mean, he's just sitting there. Relax, I said, brushing it off. Maybe he's lost, or... I stopped mid-sentence, realizing how hollow it sounded. My eyes didn't leave the sedan. Every movement in that parking lot felt amplified. The clatter of a shopping cart rolling across the asphalt sounded like gunfire. The flicker of the neon sign seemed deliberate, like a strobe for something I wasn't meant to see. And the white sedan sat there, unmoving, watching me. Or so it seemed. I got into my car finally, sliding the door shut slowly, too aware of every sound outside. The headlights of the sedan were off, yet the interior seemed to glow faintly, like the car itself was alive in the dark. The windows fogged just enough to hide whatever, or whoever, was inside, but not enough to keep me from imagining eyes staring back at me. Jess sighed, shaking her head as she got into her car. I swear this place attracts weird people, she muttered. Yeah, probably nothing, I replied, more to myself than her. But I could feel my pulse spiking. The white sedan felt impossible to ignore now, a constant presence at the edge of my vision. As I started the engine, I glanced once more at the car. For a moment, I thought I saw it move slightly, adjusting in its space like it was anticipating me leaving, but the lot was empty otherwise. No other cars, no people, just the dull hum of fluorescent light bouncing off the asphalt. I could tell Jess noticed my tension. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said quickly, too quickly, gripping the steering wheel. "Just thinking about closing out the registers. You know how it is." And that was a lie. I hadn't thought about work once since leaving the store. All I could think about was that car. As I pulled out of the parking space, the white sedan remained where it was. Or maybe it wasn't there at all. The shadows in my memory twist it differently each time I recall the night. But in that moment, I felt an undeniable dread. The kind that sits in your stomach and spreads like ice through your chest. We drove out of the lot, and I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. The streetlights cast long shadows across the hood of my car. I don't remember if the sedan followed at first, or if I imagined it. Some nights I think I saw it in the mirror, headlights off, following every turn. Other nights, I convinced myself it stayed in the parking lot the whole time. Jess chatted nervously beside me, laughing too loudly at nothing, trying to cut through the tension I could barely hide. "Maybe it's nothing," she said, glancing at me. But I knew she wasn't convinced, and I couldn't tell her what I knew, or thought I knew. The thing about that night is that I started noticing the little details that didn't make sense. The way the car windows seemed to breathe, fog forming in unnatural shapes, the shadows stretching oddly, not matching the light, the sudden stops and starts of headlights flicking across the street like a warning. And the more I looked, the more I obsessed. By the time we pulled onto the main road, I was certain of one thing. The white sedan wasn't just a car. It was a presence, watching, waiting, maybe for me, maybe for Jess, maybe for both. And here's the twist, the part I can't fully admit. I think I wanted to see it, even as I told myself not to. I think I hoped it wouldn't be there. I think I wanted it to be. Jess didn't know that. She never would. I kept it to myself. And when we parted ways that night, she didn't notice the way I lingered in the rearview mirror, straining to see, trying to convince myself the sedan wasn't following us. But it was. And that's where it ends for now. The moment before the real chase begins. The moment before every turn, every street, every rear-view glance becomes a question of whether reality is slipping. Because when you leave a Dollar Tree at 10 p.m., nothing should be watching you. But that night, something was. You ever get that feeling that no matter how fast you drive, someone else is moving faster? That night, I felt it like a weight pressing down on my chest. The white sedan wasn't just parked anymore. It was behind me, just a few car lengths away, headlights off, engine silent, following every turn like it had been tracking me my entire life. And the weirdest part? I don't remember exactly when I noticed it. Sometimes I tell myself I saw it pulling out right as I left the Dollar Tree lot. Other times, I swear it appeared midway down the street, like it had materialized from the shadows. My memory is a broken film reel. Some frames I can see clearly, others are smudged, distorted, and I can't tell what's real anymore. The streetlights cast long, thin shadows across the pavement. Every signpost and mailbox seemed to stretch unnaturally toward my windshield. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, and each time, the sedan appeared closer than it should have been, sometimes even seeming to lean forward, like it was pressing toward me through the night. I tried to convince myself. Lots of white sedans exist. It's probably someone else. But logic didn't help. Even as I thought it, I couldn't shake the certainty that it was him. Or was it me? That thought lingered, twisting in my chest. Jess's voice came from the passenger seat, light but strained. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just coincidence. I nodded, but my head was spinning. Yeah, probably. Another lie. She didn't know me at that moment. She couldn't know how I was already convinced the car was following me. Every turn I took, the sedan followed. Every stoplight, it waited. And the strangest thing was the way it moved. Almost perfectly, unnaturally in sync with me, like it anticipated my choices. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, knuckles white. I could feel my pulse in my throat. At one point, I took an exit, trying to shake it. Maybe a wrong turn would throw it off. But when I glanced back from the curve, the sedan was still there. Headlights blacked out, windows tinted, silent, waiting, watching. And in that instant, I wondered if I'd ever left the store at all. I started talking to Jess in bursts, trying to distract myself. "Do you remember the guy in the Dollar Tree parking lot?" I asked. She laughed nervously. "Yeah, the white sedan guy, right?" "Yeah," I said, voice shaking. "Do you think maybe he followed us?" Her laugh faltered. "Probably not. It's late. People park weird. You're just..." She trailed off, unsure, looking at me. And in that hesitation, I realized how alone I really was. The night felt longer than it should have. The roads didn't end. Every street seemed to stretch endlessly, like the world itself had decided to trap me in some distorted loop. The sedan never got closer, but it never fell behind either. It simply existed there, in the distance, a persistent, impossible shadow. At one point, I thought I saw movement inside the car. A face, maybe. Sometimes I think I saw eyes dark and unblinking. Other times, I swear the driver was empty, a phantom presence instead of a person. Memory shifts like this. Sometimes I think I made it up. Sometimes I think the car is smarter than I am. I called my sister on speakerphone, hoping to hear a familiar voice, something to ground me. "Hey, yeah, I'm fine," I said quickly, though my voice trembled. "Just driving home. Are you sure?" she asked. "You sound weird." "Yeah, weird night. Nothing serious," I lied. I didn't tell her about the sedan. Couldn't. And if I had, I'm not sure I would have believed myself either. The streets grew darker, the houses more spread apart. Each intersection felt like a test. Every curve I took seemed calculated to keep the sedan at bay. Yet it always stayed there. Silent. Perfect. Waiting. At one point, I braked hard, heart hammering in my chest, and in that moment, I noticed it, or thought I did. The car's passenger side window rolled down a fraction, a subtle whisper of motion that shouldn't have been possible. But when I blinked, it was gone. I started rationalizing again. It's nothing, just my imagination. But I couldn't convince myself. Not anymore. Every time I glanced in the rear view, I expected it to vanish. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it didn't. And every time it appeared, I felt that same cold weight of inevitability pressing into me. This car wasn't just behind me. It was waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to make a mistake. I tried taking side streets, doubling back, even circling the same block. Nothing mattered. The sedan mirrored every move, obeying some unspoken rule that I couldn't understand. At one point, I remembered Jess saying something else in the parking lot. "Some guy's been watching the store for days," she whispered. And I laughed it off then, nervous, thinking she was paranoid. But now, I wasn't so sure. By the time I approached the main road leading home, I realized I hadn't blinked in what felt like hours. My vision blurred at the edges, and yet every detail of that sedan stayed burned into my mind. The white paint, the tinted windows, the way it seemed to pulse in the darkness like it had a heartbeat. And then the unthinkable happened. I swear it was following me home. But when I turned the corner onto my street, it was gone. Not just hidden in shadows. Gone. As if it had never been there at all. I pulled into my driveway, shaking, and sat in silence, gripping the wheel. Jess got out, glancing back at me with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. Yeah, fine," I muttered, though my voice cracked. Just tired, but I wasn't fine. I knew what I felt wasn't over, and deep down, I knew that sooner or later, the white sedan would reappear, waiting, watching, always, because the roads don't end. They never do. You ever get that feeling someone, or something, has been inside your car all along, waiting for the perfect moment to show itself? That's how it felt that night. After the white sedan disappeared from my rearview mirror, I thought I was safe. I thought the nightmare had passed. But the moment I turned into my driveway, I heard it. The soft, deliberate click of a seatbelt. I froze, heart hammering so loudly I thought it would shatter my ribs. The dome light flickered on for just a second, casting a thin glow across the passenger seat. And there it was, empty, or maybe not. I leaned closer, squinting through the dim yellow glow. My own reflection stared back at me from the windshield. But then I thought I saw movement in the passenger seat again, tiny, subtle, like the fabric shifted on its own. My hands shook, gripping the steering wheel. I'm imagining this, I whispered to no one, though I knew I wasn't alone. Sometimes I remember it differently. Some nights, I swear I saw the outline of a man, the white sedan's driver somehow inside my car, smiling faintly in the dim light. Other nights, I insist the seat was empty, and the sound of the seatbelt was just the house settling, or my mind breaking. I opened the door slowly, air cold against my face. Nothing, just the passenger seat, still and empty like it had never moved. But I couldn't shake it. The sound had come from somewhere. I thought about calling Jess, or my sister, or anyone, but I couldn't, not yet. Not until I figured out what was real. And maybe that was the trick. The thing that made my mind twist itself into knots. Reality had stopped being trustworthy. The street was quiet, houses dark, the moon hidden behind fast-moving clouds. But the weight of that sedan, that presence, felt heavier than ever. Every creak of the car, every gust of wind sounded deliberate, purposeful. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, wishing for answers. And then I remembered something. The first night, in the Dollar Tree lot. The way I kept glancing at the car. The way I told myself it was nothing. The contradictions, the lies. And suddenly I realized maybe it wasn't him in the car that night. Maybe it was me. I shook my head, denying the thought. No, impossible. But the seed had been planted. What if I'd imagined the sedan the entire time? Or worse, what if I'd been the one following someone else? I checked the rearview mirror again. Empty street, no headlights, nothing. And yet, I felt it. The same cold weight pressing on my chest. The same unnerving certainty that I wasn't alone. I tried to rationalize. "It's my mind," I said aloud. "Just stress, paranoia, everything twisting together." But the voice sounded hollow. I didn't believe it, and I knew it. A soft creak from the passenger side door made me jump. Slowly, my hand reached toward the door handle. My fingers trembled so badly I almost dropped the keys. Nothing. The door was closed, locked. And then I thought I saw it. A flicker in the corner of my eye. The white of a seatbelt snapping across the empty passenger seat. I froze, breath shallow, pulse racing, and I whispered, barely audible, "Who's there?" No answer. Just silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating. I've replayed that night in my head countless times. Some versions end with the door opening, a shadow leaning over me. Other versions, I drive inside, lock every door, and stare at the seat, empty, yet somehow still occupied. People ask me why I tell this story at all, why I confess all these contradictions, all these gaps in memory. The answer is simple, because someone, or something, needs to know. Someone needs to see the truth that I can't fully face myself. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see the sedan again, not behind me this time, not on the street, inside my driveway, parked in the passenger seat, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, it's always been me, because the car doesn't follow, it doesn't chase, it doesn't leave, it waits, and it knows. And I think I finally realized, it doesn't matter if it's him or me. The lines between observer and observed have already blurred. The white sedan is everywhere I am, every glance in a mirror, every shadow in the corner of my eye. And some nights, I think it's the only thing that remembers me at all.